Hey, we got to support each other.
We do. We do.
Got to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, what are we doing in the world?
I don't know.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sweet Madness Podcast. My name is Amanda Montoni. There's my face. And I am so excited to start the next season with you guys. As you can tell, we are not inside. We are outside, and you can hear a train going by. We are in a lovely park on Long Island, and I am wearing a Breakfast Club shirt because it's one of my favorite movies. Just little tidbits to connect with you guys. So, I have here with me today my great friend who I refer to most of the time as King Arthur, and we'll get to why I call him that in a minute. Jim Haines.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see you folks on the Sweet Madness Podcast. I almost said the Amazing Madness Podcast, but it's amazingly sweet. So there you go.
And sometimes madness is amazingly mad.
Absolutely. We're all mad here, don't you know?
It's a mad world.
Mm-hmm. Mad world. So, hi, sweetie. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay. Life is good. Quiet for now, but we're all right.
Okay. Unlike mine is full of madness at the moment, but...
But so I have never known you without turmoil. I've never, hi, Amanda. Oh, hi. How's things? Oh, nothing. Since 2016, that has never happened. So
Jim likes to tell a story about how we started working together and he just knew me as the tired person and the one who complained about smelling like Applebee's all the time. See, he's laughing. You can't control it.
It's true. We did a show. I might as well tell the origin story.
Mm-hmm.
We were cast in a production of Spamalot. I was King Arthur and she was my patsy. And we spent a lot of time backstage together. And at the time, Amanda had a part-time job at Applebee's, which we used to call Awfulbee's. And actually, so I did a voiceover. We did a quickie commercial for the show, and I did the voiceover for it. And she wrote the script for it on the back of an Applebee's placemat. And we would be backstage. And we hardly knew each other. And she would just look at me and go, I stink! I smell like Applebee's! And I'm like, sorry. My feet smell! I'm sorry. What am I going to put on my tap? I don't know. I don't know.
I was much more anxiety-driven back then.
But it comes out as anger. I'm like, sure, great. We're all alone. And we go dancing out.
Yep, and then in a minute, I'm...
Yes, with coconuts.
With coconuts. If you don't know Spamalot, look up Monty Python and the Holy Grail. That's what the musical is based off of.
Mm-hmm.
Yay! Yes. So, Jim.
And that started a long-time friendship, which is ongoing today. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So, Jim, we met each other through the power of musical theater and community theater.
Yes.
If you listened to season 1, you know that I am on the board for a community theater group in Queens. Called Royal Star Theater, and that is the theater company where we met, which is awesome.
They produced Spamalot.
We produced Spamalot. So, Jim, have you been acting all of your life? Have you been performing all of your life? What's your story? What's your theater story?
Oh God. One thing you folks at home are going to learn is there are no short answers to any Jim Haines story. But frankly, I was always drawn to the performing media, whether it was television, good television, bad television, whether it was animation, and the voiceover work in animation, or even the drawing in animation, or films. I'm one of those people that now, since cable TV happened, and now it's all streaming media. I was one of the first people to watch a movie 50 times, like the original Jaws. I could watch to this day. I could put it on, and my wife would be like, "Oh, he's doing that again." So I was always drawn to it. I never had the confidence, because growing up, I was the short kid with glasses in school. If you've all been to school, you always had a short kid with glasses. It was kind of a state law that there always had to be one. Well, I was that kid, and I was remarkably unathletic. So it sort of reinforced me going home, drawing, and watching a lot of television, which taught me just by osmosis how to do cartoon voices, and it was fun. And one of the things about me is I do things I'm good at, so trying new things is always producing tremendous anxiety and anger and rage and throwing things across the room. So, yeah, I was always drawn to theater, but I never had the confidence to do it. And I owe a production of Neil Simon's Fools back in, here we go, kids, 1983. the guy who was playing the lead villain, his name was Paul Patty. Hello, Paul. He dropped out of playing Count Gregor Yauskovich to go be cast in Barnum across town. So in pure desperation, the director, my friend Ed, said, if you don't do this, I mean, he was lying, but he said, if you don't do this, we can't do the show. So which produced guilt in me. And I found that memorizing lines came easy. I had to speak in a Russian accent, which I found very easy to do too. And, it just clicked. It was like the penny dropped. It was like, oh, this is this. I can do this. I can do this and have fun. And there wasn't a lot of things in my life that I did that were fun. Like sports was out, school was, I like to read, but if anything past reading and history really was kind of lost on me. So yeah, that's how I got involved in theater. And I was always running back and forth, a lot of community stuff, and then you take time off to get a job. And then you go back to community stuff when you have enough money, and then you get married. And then your friends have babies, so then you kind of drift out and drift back and drift out and drift back. But basically, the end of the day is I got let go from my graphic design job, and this was the last time I was fully really employed. I went to art school. I have a degree in illustration.
He designed the covers for my poetry books, guys.
That is true. So,
Yay.
so knowing me has some perks. So that's when I decided to give acting a shot. Plus, I had taken some animation courses at college, and my teachers liked my animation, but they liked the voices I did better. So I actually did get some voiceover work out of that. So my wife was very much pushing me. She goes, this is what you should do. And I said, well, then I would have to quit my job. And then she would say, well, never mind. And then 6 months later, this is what you should do. But then, all right, let me quit my job. Never mind. And then the job quit me. So since then, I've been kind of scratching and clawing to try and make something work. But it's been economically tough. But my soul is very, very rewarded and full. And I got to meet some wonderful people.
Yes.
She's one of them.
Yes, I can feel you on the economically rough and the trying to find the balance between feeding your soul and what you want to do and what makes you happy, and also being financially stable. It's very hard with any artists of any capacity, of any genre, like whether it's performing or dancing, or if it's art.
Or creating, or being a director, or writing, or
yes.
choreography, or anything. It's
yes.
Because the author T.H. White said it best in the Book of Merlin. He writes a very long piece, and he ends it with, you have to understand that happiness is a byproduct of function. So if you're doing what you're supposed to do, you are naturally going to be happy. So the point is, don't look for happiness in life. Look for what you're supposed to do, and then happiness is a bonus. You know what I mean? It's a Benny.
Yeah, and I feel like we always have lost sight of that at one point in our lives because of, financial situations and everything. And I see it in a lot of people that I knew in high school who love to dance, who love to perform, and they always wanted to follow their dream of becoming a professional dancer or a professional performer. And
being in the arts in some capacity.
In the arts of some capacity, and then they sacrifice their happiness at some point, and then they find themselves just completely burned out because they're not feeding their soul. They're not feeding themselves. Instead, they're draining themselves to just get by and survive. And sometimes that's necessary, but I see people get stuck in that mode for way longer than it should be. And then they're like, well, I'm just going to make a change, because they realize that they should be doing what makes them happy, to feed themselves and to better their lives in every single capacity. Because if you're not at your best, you will not do your best.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yep.
And I tell students that all the time too. If they're tired, or if they have how many curriculars going on, and even like friends that I have talked about with life situations, I'm like, it's up to you to make your priorities and what can be let go, and what will always be there to come back to. And I went through the same thing. I had to reevaluate. That's why I made a big change in my career, and I'm still in transition, because there's so much work that has to go into building something that I've never done before. And I had to make that choice, and I'm like, listen, I used to love this. I know I can always fall back on it, but it's the one thing that's making me dread waking up every single day in the morning for. So let me make a change. And for some people, that's really, really hard. It's really, 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 really freaking hard. especially given, financial situations.
Also, your personal view of yourself. Some people think,
Yeah.
well, this is, people say, well, it's fate. I can't do anything else. So I guess this is where I'm supposed to be. You're not supposed to be anywhere. You pick, it's
Live in the present.
Yeah, but you charter your own boat. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I mean, yeah, stuff happens to you, but I mean, it's not magic.
No. In
Luck,
some
luck
way-
is a residue of design.
Yeah. In some way, shape, or form, it will come back to the choices you made.
Yeah.
It's
Your life
cause
is
and
your
effect.
responsibility.
Yep. It's cause and effect. And that's one of the principles of the Buddha and Buddhism.
Mm-hmm.
I'm reading a whole book on Buddhism. I just am educating myself on different schools of thought. And a lot of it is based in human philosophy and not necessarily worshiping something, but a way of life, a lifestyle.
What I like about the Buddha is he doesn't have any body issues. If you're going to follow somebody that, eats with abandon. Okay. All those skinny people that you normally see, they don't have problems.
So what age would you say when you really started to feel like theater became a predominant force in your life? A dominant force in your life?
It was something I was compelled. It's like I was compelled to do. Once I did it once from 1983, then it was like, what's next, guys? Because it was just this thing that always got fed, and even productions that weren't so wonderful, and there are always a productions that's not so wonderful. Like I always managed to get something out of it, or put something into it, or try something new. And I learned what not to do. There are a couple things I know that I completely hammed it up. Which is probably why I have no sympathy for anybody I watch hamming it up on stage. It's like, because it reminds me of me. I'm like, this is cringe-inducing. No, don't schmack it up. Act it up. It was always there, but again, I just didn't believe. I just didn't believe that it was something that I could just magically do. You just don't go be an actor. You just, it's like it's the way I treat my singing. Okay, I've been cast in musicals, and I don't consider myself a singer. I consider myself a person who can sing. If you can understand that distinction.
Yep.
Okay? And acting was like, this is just sort of a lark. And this is one thing I owe my wife tremendously, because she says going to art school as a designer and an illustrator and trying to do everything, and even some animation, believe it or not. My wife said, honey, there are people who draw well. There are people who design well. There are people who can animate. And there are people who can act. And there are people who can be funny. And people who do voiceovers. Very, very few people can do that whole package at once. And I was like, all right, so when you use logic, it makes it very difficult to argue with you, honey. But that's sort of like, I kind of had to believe in myself, because the evidence was just too strong to like, all right, you're not just some lucky schmo. I always, that was sort of my default setting. I'm lucky. I didn't stink, which is really a very, very low bar to set for yourself. And that was a mistake. That was a tremendous mistake. And that I regret.
Mm-hmm. What affected you deeply that sparked this, I wouldn't say love, but I would say interest in plays or theater or literature from the beginning? Do you have one of
I don't have a flashpoint. I like to think that there's got to be, when we talk about kids with developmental difficulties and issues, I always had an issue with just the rigid structure of school. I'm not, unfortunately, a person that does well with structure. And I always found that what my brain loves, it runs to. I can hold forth, and she can verify, on the minutia of anything I like, whether it's the Beatles, whether it's the original Star Trek, whether it's J.R.R. Tolkien, whether it's comic books, whether it's, what Spider-Man artist did what, when, and where, and how something got done, the backstory of Richard Dreyfuss and his career. Stuff like the things I like, I just don't like. It's like an addiction. I am drawn to it. I crave it. I inhale it, and I want more. And then you have opinions, and you go find people that have opinions too. And and even you can argue, you can discuss whatever. But the things I don't like, my brain absolutely rejects. And with me, it was always science, and especially math. It was like, the way I describe it is the lights shutting off in a stadium after the game is over. It's like, all right, time for fractions. It's like, and I would go home and have no idea what to do with the homework. And my parents were always so frustrated, because after a while, I could grasp the concept. So, I mean, my mother actually saying to me, "You're not a stupid boy. You're a very smart boy. But why don't what's the?" I'm like, I don't know. I just don't care. And I thought that was stupidity. I thought I was dumb. It turns out I'm not dumb. My brain just doesn't work in the direction that school wanted me to go, which worked for pretty much everybody else. So that's, I mean, and also just then you can kind of escape into fantasy land. And I adored reading. I mean, that was, one of the things I did well is I could read, and I loved to read. I read, I was off the charts as far as my English. When they make you take the aptitude tests, my teachers were like, "Your English is like, your grades are an insane spike at like age 12." And it's just like, I like reading. Because I'm compelled to. I mean, It wasn't just something I did to be smart. I had to read something else. So it just all came from that. And being creative just is the thing that lit me up. Because I could be good at it, And it took me years to cope with, they say compare and despair. I mean, there are just some people out there who are just so mind-bendingly good. Like going to college, seeing illustrators and cartoonists that left school because they didn't have to learn anything else or couldn't learn anything else. So I thought it was a waste of time. And then seeing being published in magazines and having the art of, Dave Walnowick, and you're like, oh, freaking Dave go. I thought that meant I failed. And that's not true. Like you can't compare Dave Walnowick to me, even though there really isn't a Dave Walnowick. But I have to be me. And I can't regard what I do as somehow second rate. And I always did. And in some ways it pushed me to do better. But in some ways it held me back because I thought anybody who liked what I did, oh, these dumb people, oh, you poor soul. You really don't know what you're talking about. So yeah, it's difficult. So what drove me is I liked being creative and I wanted to get better at it. And I just got, there wasn't anything else. I couldn't think of anything else to do. I mean, a regular job, I couldn't imagine if they said, yeah, we got some birdies. I couldn't imagine what it would be like if someone said, all right, what office do you want? Do you want to be an accountant? Do you want to be a lawyer? Would you like to be a doctor? Would you like to drive a cab? I mean, any of that. It's like, no, I just don't want to. No offense. I just don't want to.
Same thing with me. For the longest time, I was a dance teacher and a director. I still am, but I'm taking a break because I'm finding my love for performing again. But my dad wouldn't understand, and my mom would. My dad wouldn't understand, after college why I didn't get a full-time job in like an office or something. I mean, now I'm in an office, but I'm in a creative space for an office. I'm not in a cubicle where I have to go into the city every single day into this large building.
You get your giant cup of coffee and sit in front of a computer for 9 hours.
No, that's not me. And plus, I think also, the people you're surrounded by and the people you surround yourself with do make a difference. Like the office that I work in now, it's an art center. So I'm around artists all the time. I'm around art. I'm around performances. I'm around theater. I'm curating some of these artistic endeavors that are going on at the center. And the one thing that I love the most about it is because I love the people who I work with. They are all also like-minded, creative people.
They're on the same frequency.
And
that's really important.
Yeah, because that's your community. That's your community, and everybody wants to feel like they can identify with others and connect with others.
I am not a huge Harry Potter buff, but I remember someone was complaining about some group she was with. She was trying to put a play together. And they were more like money producer people, and they weren't creative. And she was complaining, I don't get it. What's wrong with them? I said, well, the problem is, and it just dawned on me, the problem is they're muggles. And she went, they are muggles. That's it. And I'm like, that's really it.
Yeah.
It's there are people out there who can be happy doing, or they don't think creative stuff is odd or trying not to be judgy, but I'm being judgy. They just think it's sort of odd, or you're an artist, so you have to be weird. And it's like that has some merit, but it's not.
It's a different part of your brain that's the dominant part of your brain.
Yes, but it's also just not a catch-all. Like, well, you're just weird. No, it's there's different and unique and all those other things. So it's like, feel bad for muggles, but we're not. So and you can't work with them because then they really. I mean, I've had jobs where they really thought that there was something, if not wrong with me, they just didn't understand. Where I was coming from.
They're on a different wavelength.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep, they're on a different wavelength. Yeah, some people thrive on working through logic, and some people thrive on working through creativity. And
just order, that, like I said, that ordered existence. I'm not good at that.
yeah,
It's very difficult, which is stupid, but it's true.
which is weird because I'm a very organized person.
I'm not.
For the most part, I'm a very organized person, and I know where everything is at all times because I am involved in a lot of creative things. I don't have a choice because otherwise I'll lose my mind.
But that's why I see you as a confident person, because you always got irons in the fire. You know what I mean? You always got something going on.
Yeah, I've always got irons in the fire. I've always got something going on, but I also get the backlash of that. I also get like, why can't you just choose one thing? It's like, because I'm not wired that way.
Yes.
I'm not wired that way at all. And I try explaining it to people and they don't understand it or they don't accept it because it's not acceptable
It is not.
in society. But what the ironic thing is that I'm finding the people who go against the grain and are more creative in these less creative environments are the ones that are spearheading progression and advancements and all of that. And I'm like, did we lose sight of the balance of logic and creativity and structure and messiness?
I think so. I mean, yeah. I mean, but also I would say, and trying not to sound like an old person, the speed of media today demands an instantaneous response.
Oh, yeah. It's insane.
Right. So that point, I mean, you can't, and for a terrible analogy, it takes time to bake the cookies.
Right.
You can't, like, I'd like some cookies. Well, where are they? Well, they got to get baked. They've got to be mixed.
Right.
We got to buy the stuff. We got to put it all together.
Mm-hmm. There is a
me.
strategy. This is where creativity and strategy and logic come together.
Yeah.
There's a strategy to getting your creativity out there. Like digital marketing is creativity plus strategy.
Yes, you have to marry those two things.
You have to marry them. And a lot of people were separating them when they should be combined together.
Yes.
Now that we've shown our thoughts on society today and how the human brain works, let's get back to Jim.
Said nobody ever.
So Jim.
Yes.
Do you have? You love to read.
Yes.
Do you have a specific author or playwright that you absolutely just fell in love with through your years?
Well, I would have to say someone who has sort of shown up in my life in various touchstones, as my friend Sandra likes to say, a Sherpa. You have a Sherpa. That's the people who guide you up Mount Everest. Mm-hmm. I would have to say an amazingly, blazingly original choice. Mr. Will Shakespeare was a big help in sort of wrangling my way to adulthood, and it had that balance, what we're talking about, of the creativity plus the structure, because clearly he wrote with a very, very defined structure. If you know anything about Shakespeare, and the iambic pentameter, and the rhyming games he plays, and the abutting consonants, and all the stuff that he, builds into the play itself. But it's just the most beautiful language ever been written, and it does, hate to say, make you smarter. You have to wrangle some of this stuff. It's not, there are some authors out there that are very easy bake oven. They very much hand it to you. And it's a lot of popular entertainment, and there's nothing, I adore popular entertainment. But Mr. Shakespeare makes you work.
Yeah.
Okay? And that's a turnoff to a lot of people, and I get it, but if you put in the work, the rewards you get are just, again, does make you smarter, makes you more in tune with, I'm not a poet, but I think it made me a better writer. I like to write. So.
Yeah, and today there are authors that are known as plot authors or character authors. He was both.
Yes.
He was both. He had plots that were insane, but all of the plots were driven by, I don't know about all of them, but the plays that I know the most, the plots were driven by the character's emotional state.
Everybody gets a moment, and everybody gets a very, very defined picture, a very defined portrait of each character. Absolutely. That's what I always said, the difference between Western filmmaking and more like some of the European and definitely the Asian filmmakers is if you watch an American movie, it's plot forward, and if they're good actors and if the actors do a great job, then it's a great movie. Like off the top of my head, say, Spielberg's Schindler's List. Great movie, plot-driven, what happens during the Nazi occupation of Poland. but the actors were all so good, it really pulled it all together. Where if you look at, say, any of the French movies, like the French New Wave, or like specifically Kurosawa with Seven Samurai, okay, that's way more, you'd think it's a plot movie, like these 7 guys are going to save a town from being destroyed, but it's way more complicated than that, and everybody gets a defining moment. So movies not made in the United States are way more about character. It's way more interesting for those directors to have a guy have a cup of coffee and a cigarette and watch someone try to park a car and fail, which has nothing to do with the rest of the movie. But it just sucks you in. It's like, yeah, because this is somebody's life and this is how it works. It's just a question of values. And to what your point is, Mr. Shakespeare balances both. I mean, and granted, the plays are really goddamn long, but I mean, he does. He does.
Yeah, he does. And what I like is that he always, if it's a tragedy, he always infuses the element of comedy as a relief.
Yes.
If it's comedy, he always infuses something dramatic to happen that could turn into a tragedy, but it might not necessarily do so.
Somebody's going to get their heart broken.
Yeah, somebody always gets
in a
their
comedy.
heart broken.
Somebody's like really sad at one point. You're like, I thought this was supposed to be funny.
Yeah.
And then in Macbeth, you have the drunken porter at the gate. Knock, knock. Who's there?
He really embodies the human journey.
Yes.
I mean, some things are amplified, but
The extreme.
really...
It's a very
yes.
concentrated dose of humanity in a 3 to 4 hour play.
Yeah. And what's your favorite Shakespeare play?
Oh, I mean, to be fair, I have not read all of them. Like, if we wanted to talk about Cymbeline or Troilus and Cressida, I'd be just as lost as everybody. But the one I've devoted the most time to in my life, because it was just trying to wrangle it, was absolutely Hamlet. Absolutely Hamlet. Macbeth is, frankly, a better plot. It's much more linear.
Yeah.
It has beginning and a middle and an end. And Hamlet takes really weird detours. But it's like when people I know who were history majors in college, once they hit the American Civil War, part of their soul is gone forever. Because they can't help wrangle it. Like, what if Robert E. Lee did this? And what if Grant did this? And Lincoln, and there's Lincoln soldiering through the whole time. Like, they get lost in it. And I think Hamlet is that for me. Like, I'm just lost in it. I always have a copy of it on, like, in my car. Actually, right now, we had the car. I'd show you. But I always have a copy of Hamlet on. Always.
Yeah. Man, Shakespeare.
Fuck
Shakespeare. Speaking of
Good
Shakespeare.
old Will Shakespeare.
Speaking of Shakespeare, Jim Haines, you have a show that you've written that is premiering very soon.
June 28th, 29th, and 30th at the Stone Circle Theater, which is the old Presbyterian Church in Ridgewood, Queens, right off of Myrtle Avenue. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of July 4th weekend. So don't go anywhere. Please come. Yes, I started writing this in 2019 because, frankly, I realized I aged out of playing Hamlet. And I said, but that didn't stop me from having ideas, which is really true. There's a great play called The Dresser, where one of the characters is totally ripping an acting colleague, something we've never done. And he says, he got on playing Hamlet until he was 62, because there are more lines on his face than there were on the balcony. And it was like, oh, yeah, okay, sure. So, but it didn't stop me from having ideas about Hamlet and how Hamlet should be done, and watching people do Hamlet, and some people doing it very well and some people not so much. And why is it not so much? And again, strong opinions. I've never been I've kept them quiet, but they're always bubbling in my head. So I started writing about it. And it's like me and Will Shakespeare. It was like, what I think of Will Shakespeare, but how you should do Will Shakespeare. And like when did I get a chance to do it? How did I do, and what did I do, and why did I do it? And it just started to flow from there. And the only acting courses I ever took in my life was with a man named DeLoss Brown, who was my Shakespeare teacher. And he had very definite ideas, gently put, but very definite ideas. And I learned a lot from him. And I started writing some of his input and my take on his input. And it turned into a one-man show just in time for COVID. So I was pitching it to friends, like, I don't know if this will go anywhere, but, and trying to get your friends to read it. And it is difficult for all you playwrights out there. If your friends don't read your play, it's not that they hate you or, it takes time, and they're afraid it's going to stink, really. It's like, I've still have people out there who've yet to read my stuff.
Thank you for clarifying that, Jim.
It's important, because I've got stuff on my desk that it's like, oh dear.
I've got stuff on my desk.
Whoopsie. So, finally, post-COVID, my friend Erin Layton, who is now my director.
Hi, Erin.
Hi, Erin. She is an author of a one-person show herself. And I gave it to her in sort of desperation because I had 2 other chances to try and put this together, but they collapsed and burned. Through no fault of anybody, it was just time and the wrong time, and everybody else was, lives change and move on. And Erin read it and really liked it and said, I think, here's some notes on this. I think you should keep writing this. The fine people at Citygate Productions had an open submission, and I submitted it. And they said, yes, Jim, this is worth it. So my show, entitled The Crackpot Shakespeare Theories, Volume 1, don't wait for Volume 2, but Volume 1 goes up. And it's just me and my ideas, and you learn a little about me. As comedy drives the show, comedy's the engine that drives the show, but there's tragedy, there's real sadness, and there's embarrassment, and there's humiliation, but there's a lot of fun.
The human condition.
Yes.
The human condition.
The human condition.
Yes. I'm really excited to see it.
Thank you.
I will be there.
Thank you. I know.
Opening night.
Thank you. I know. You've been wonderfully supported throughout the whole process.
Oh,
You're welcome. We complain to each other about our stuff that doesn't quite work. So that was, she's heard more about this than pretty much anybody.
And I've also read it through different stages.
That is true. That is true. I actually read it to you. God bless you. Oh my God. That's a friend.
Hey, we got to support each other.
We do. We
got to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, what are we doing in the world?
I don't know. Going to diners and getting French fries.
We just did
Which
that.
We just did.
Yes. So, anything else you can tell us about your one-man show coming out?
Directed by Erin Layton, produced by Citygate Productions. Tickets available now, citygateproductions.org.
I'll drop links to everything in the description.
Yep. We got a really good poster. And graphic design coming into play.
He drew it.
I drew it, and I designed it, and everything else. All I can say is it is a heartfelt love letter to theater, Will Shakespeare, and just sticking it out. Just don't give up. There's a difference between activity and progress. Mm-hmm. Okay, I've had friends that try to do something and it never quite works out, and I'm forever using the example. You can take a bucket with the best of intentions and try to empty the ocean. You can go to Jones Beach every day and, work for 8 hours a day, emptying the ocean. And you put in the work, but nothing happened because the goal was not correct in the first place. So, you've always got to assess your goals and assess yourself. So,
and then once you set those goals, consistency matters.
Yes, but at least do one thing a day.
Yep.
That way, at the end of the month, you've done 30 things toward your goal. Like, don't overwhelm and think you have to get it all done. Like, that's my mistake. If I don't do it all in one day, I hate myself, and then I brood, and then it's like, back to watching television.
That was a tough lesson for me to learn. I learned that I personally also, I work better when I'm doing little bits of toward different goals because I'm involved in so many things. And plus, my brain is optimized for 30-minute increments.
Yes.
Like, I found my niche time to work on different things. Mm-hmm. And I also have a little touch of ADD, but there's that. So,
who doesn't?
So I'm like, okay, half an hour. I feel myself getting droopy, and I'm like, I need to move on to something else. So I feel like if people just analyze themselves, listen to their bodies, notice what's going on in their brain and their bodies and their feelings while they're working on something. Analyze that and then break it up. It doesn't all have to happen in a day. And chances are, if you work a little bit each day, whether it's 5 days a week or 7 days a week, if you want weekends off, you'll make more progress by the end of the year than you would if you have it in your head and the mindset that you have to get this amount done for 3 hours each day because you're just stopping yourself if your body doesn't function that way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One brick at a time.
One brick at a time, such is the sweet madness of life.
Mm-hmm. They sang that in Barnum, by the way.
One brick at a time?
Yeah, there's a music. Yeah. There's I don't know, remember, I think it's Barnum's wife inspiring him to do it one brick at a time.
Look at that.
That's the second play I was ever in.
And Jim?
Yes, dear.
We're going to say goodbye to the people out there.
No,
I know.
No, don't go. Stay with us.
I loved it having this conversation with you. I think we've got a lot of different things. I mean, we touched on Buddhism, for goodness sake.
Sure. We don't need skinny Jesus. We need chubby Buddha. We've established that.
Chubby Buddha.
Chubby Buddha.
And so if you are interested in Jim's crackpot Shakespeare show. You can go to citygateproductions.org to buy tickets. It premieres next Friday, and we hope to see you there. He hopes to see you there. The Citygate board hopes to see you there. And
Planet Earth hopes to see you there. All society, all art hopes to see you there. Parking is abysmal, so just plan ahead. The L train is not far, so if you can take the L train, take it.
Yes. And Jim, do you have any social handles or websites that people can find you at?
Not particularly. I'm on the dumb social media. I'm on like zany Facebook. I'm on zany Instagram. I'm very findable. I don't have my own website. I probably should, but I thought they were passé. Are they passé?
No, you still need people to go to something. Yeah.
All right. I'll work on it.
I mean, it depends on what your thing is.
I know.
We can have a whole other discussion.
Yeah, I know, yeah. How to brand yourself.
If you guys like what you heard and you want to keep updated when new episodes come out, hit that subscribe button, or you can drop us a rating or sign up for the Sweet Madness newsletter. When you sign up for the Sweet Madness newsletter at amandamontoni.com, you get a free personalized poem written by me. And I think I've written one for you, Jim.
Yes, you did. You said don't give up. And I would hold that to my heart. It's very true.
I am
Ending
here,
on a sappy note.
Yes. I am here to help you guys in whatever way I can and get you through the sweet, sweet madness of life. Have a good one, guys. Thank you so much for listening.
So long, folks.
See you, hear you soon. Bye-bye.
Pausing is such sweet sorrow, said somebody.